Most people know that the answer to the tell me about you question influences the rest of your interview. What most people miss is that a bad answer gets you rejected. Let's dive right into the three main things you need to know. Number one, how to structure a strong answer using the addressing weaknesses framework. Number two, making the role you are interviewing for seem like a great next step in your narrative. And number three, how to avoid the most common mistakes people make. At the end, we'll put together a sample answer. You don't want to miss it. Now on to number one, how to structure a strong answer using the addressing weaknesses framework. This is the most powerful way to answer the question bar none. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The trick is to ask, what are the weaknesses in my candidacy? Interviewers are looking at your resume while you're answering the question, or they've just looked at it. So they have formed certain opinions about weaknesses in your candidacy. So you need to address what they perceive are weaknesses and shine a spotlight on your strengths. The fastest and most objective way to do this is to return to the job description. I know, right? Most of those things are copy-pasted junk, but they are still the best source of signal for you on the job. Let's say I'm this PM from Microsoft. I've had a couple years experience at Microsoft. I've worked at Wayfair before that, worked at Deloitte, and now here's the school. And I'm applying for this job. Here we can see they're working on AI and ML initiatives, which aligns up with my experience. They want experience with things like the Vision Pro. That's interesting, and it looks like they have a years of experience requirement. So this helps me then think about what are the potential weaknesses. The job is looking for 6+ years of consumer growth experience, which we just saw, but the candidate was a consultant before. So the specific consumer growth experience is about 4.5 years. So this is the first weakness. By the way, don't worry if you're a student. Our sample answer at the end is just for you. The job is also focused on new hardware platforms like Apple Vision Pro, but the PM doesn't have experience with that. So this is the second weakness. Finally, the job is at Tinder in the dating realm. So the interviewer is definitely going to resonate most with those candidates, but as a candidate, I don't have that experience. So the answer that we come up with should address all three of these weaknesses head on. Since graduating from my MBA in 2019 at Duke, I've been a PM at Wayfair for a year, and then Microsoft for the last 3 years. At Microsoft, I'm most recently proud of our Copilot for Teams launch, which I actually led, and I presented on stage and ultimately outperforming a lot of our launch metrics. I also worked on Teams across a variety of hardware devices, including macOS, Windows, ChromePad, Android, and iOS. Although I've been a PM in consumer products for 4.5 years, before my MBA at Deloitte, I actually worked as a PM consultant for a variety of other consumer products. So my total time as a PM is about 7 years. One of my clients at Deloitte was actually a competitor of Tinder's, a large public company. This is how you actually influence the course of the rest of the interview. You have head-on brought up the topics that the interviewer might consider weak about your candidacy. The big mistake that most candidates make is that they let those weaknesses linger in the interviewer's mind. So the follow-up questions from the interviewer all revolve around those weaknesses. On the other hand, this framing lets you lead with strengths. Number two, making the role you're interviewing for seem like a great next step in your narrative. Have you ever asked someone if they wanted something and they just felt disinterested? This is exactly how you do not want your interviewer to feel. People who get the job seem excited about the role that they're interviewing for. So let's go back to our example. This role at Tinder is about things like working on Vision Pro and AI, so you should incorporate your interest in those. Here's how you could add that into your answer. With my experience working on Teams Copilot using GPT-4 at Microsoft, I'm very excited about this role. I believe that AI really can be at the forefront of a lot of next-gen products like TikTok. And so, although things are going super well at Microsoft, I was excited when I saw this posting and I just had to apply. The key to answering these questions is realizing that humans think about careers linearly. So even though your career has likely had its twists, its turns, you need to help draw the through lines in the interviewer's mind that this job is a natural next step, that you're a natural qualified candidate. So for our candidate, she's connected this back to her AI experience, and you should make your own linkages. 3, addressing the key mistakes that most people make. The tell me about yourself question definitely influences the rest of your interview, and that's mistake number one. Bringing up details or stories that you don't remember everything about. A lot of people tend to do this. They underestimate how many of the details they've actually forgotten about stories that are relevant to a job. And then they come into the interview, and when the interviewer asks follow-up questions, they're just like, and so you don't really want to be that person. You want to be the person who is, I know all the details. I know the metric. I know all the details. I know the metrics that I drove. I know the initiatives that I took on in order to drive those metrics. So you need to be that person who is on top of everything. Mistake two is that people go way, way too long. And I just can't overemphasize this enough. I have to admit that even when I was an interviewer, this was the number one reason I rejected candidates. They just take up most of the interview time. And so I highly recommend that you keep it under 2 minutes and you get good at staying under 2 minutes. And the way I like to do that is I like to practice it before the interview, but you can take whatever works for you. Mistake three is that people don't have an easy to follow narrative. So this looks something like a jumble of a structure where you're jumping from one topic to the next. Oh, hey, I'm Akash. Yeah, so that's my background. So whether it's chronological or reverse chronological, try to have some flow to your answer. The best way to do this is to draft your answer to this question before every interview. Then record yourself and finesse your response. Now let's put this all together for a good answer, but this time let's have a new example. Let's pretend I'm a college student and I'm interested in an APM program at Spotify. My weaknesses are I don't have a PM internship, I haven't worked in the music industry, and I went to a middling school. I am really excited about this role at Spotify. I have been using Spotify for over 10 years now. I constantly have ideas for how it could be better. That's because I actually worked on several side projects in college in a similar space. One of my favorites was generate a song with AI. So this was a website that I released. I leveraged some of those latest open source APIs from Meta. And with my CS background, I was able to build this app and grow it to 5,000 users. The fun I had with that makes me really excited about Spotify's APM program. I want to spend my career in product management. When I did my software engineering internship at Amazon, I loved working with PMs. It made me realize that this is the job I want to take up in my career. It's the intersection of my technical, music, and builder talents. This really answers all three of those criteria. On the first, it answers the weaknesses. On the second, it really brings into the relevant details in your background that are relevant to this job. And then number three, the mistakes, it's fairly concise. It has stories that we remember the details of, so it's exactly what we're looking for. That's it. That's the three-part formula for your answer to the Tell Me About You question. So do you want to prepare for more behavioral interview questions? You'll love my newsletter, which I've linked below. That's it. If you're interested in getting more job content like this, like, subscribe, comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one.